Welcome back to Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hyper-sexualized times of ours. And in today's episode, I'm interviewing one of our chapter leaders, Andranik, to do a year in review of what they've been up to over there in Europe. There's some exciting stuff in there, but it's also, this conversation took a turn for the sincere, and we learned about some pretty difficult stuff that's going on over there as well, which impacts us all as a collective. And it's really important information for you to know if you're a parent or if you're a concerned person, human, who cares about other humans, to know that there's some people in some dark places, okay? Our work here at High Noon is to really focus on helping you to build sexual integrity, to help you to have an amazing, radiant, blessed life. Everybody deserves that. God wants that for everybody. And yet, so many people are in extremely dark places, and we want to not only rectify that, but be a bridge between the darkness and the light. And so we get into that, and this is a great episode. I'm excited about what's going on in Europe and what Europe is transforming into. So, hey everybody, buckle up. Get a nice glass of water or tea or what have you, and let's go into this episode with Andranik from Europe. Hey everybody, come on now. Settle down, everybody. We have another week on this planet, and it's a good week. It's going to be a great week, actually, and it's going to be even better because of this episode, because you will know by the end of this how Europe is doing. And I know all of you are wondering how Europe is doing, because it's a giant continent. It's our elder brother from America. It's like the elder brother continent with so much potential. And we have one guy who's in charge of everything. How many countries are in Europe?
Europe, like European Union, or Europe, like continent?
The continent.
Continent depends on where you draw the line of where Europe ends, but it's something like 40, 50.
Oh, okay. Sounds similar to America. So, so we have Andranik here, and I realized that we haven't really reviewed. A lot of times, like in our line of work, we'll get somebody to give a testimony when they're doing really well, and then it's good to check up on them like a year later. How are they doing now, right? Because sometimes there's an ebb and flow to this. So we heard from Andranik when he was starting, and now that he's all grizzly and he has scars all over his face and he's wearing an eye patch. I hope you don't see the video. I hope you can just imagine Andranik as a pirate. We want to hear about how this first year, it's almost been a year, right? We started doing the job search, I think, in July last year, and it's July next week. So this has really been close to a year. It was an idea that we had that manifested into substantial reality, which is to have these chapters. And you are a guy for Europe. So first of all, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks. Good to be back.
And what's crazy is, like, every chapter we have has strengths and weaknesses. And just as a quick aside, if you are not European, this still matters. Please listen up, because the developments in each chapter are, like, every chapter is growing at its own pace, and they have their different challenges and different strengths. But tune in to see how God is working in Europe through Andranik and his team. He now has a team. And if you are European, please take out a pen and take notes, because there's a lot of things happening over there, and Europe needs you. We need all hands on deck. So, Andranik, the first question is, I'm very curious about what you feel is the most unique aspect of Europe. What makes Europe great, or like, what do you take pride in? You know, I know Europeans are very proud people. So, give me the scoop. Why is Europe so unique in terms of the chapter? In terms of, give me the scoop.
Yeah. Well, I just a little backtrack about the eye patch. I do remember actually when I started working that it was like the first or second week that I had a basketball accident, and then I had like a cut above my eye, and I still have a scar for it now, and I had no
Yeah.
eye for like the first 2 weeks.
We still don't fully believe that Sandra isn't just punching you on the regular to keep you in check. We know she's a tough cookie.
For sure, yeah. All right, what's unique about Europe? I think probably the most unique thing is our like diversity and cultural divides. Personally, I grew up, I think, like right on the middle line between what we'd consider East and West Europe. I think all these countries like the Baltics, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic. I don't know, like these kind of countries that were the borderline between basically like Russia and that whole world and the West. Uh, Within our movement, within the church as well, like I can feel that there's a divide, and then we're somehow in that middle. And yeah, just like this diversity of countries. I've been traveling now for the past year, visiting communities, and I've realized every single community is different, and like not different like there's a different uncle and aunt there, but the way they do things, the way they organize the whole community. Some are like really democratic, and some are very kind of vertical and centralized communities. And then how people. I had this discussion recently, I think, with someone that we were talking about like second generation in Europe, and this person is really interested in education, and he's really concerned about that. And we're trying to figure out, yeah, what is the typical kind of difficulty that people face in Europe. And I said, no, we can't just find one because there's this cultural divide, and in some parts of Europe, it's like people are super free, like they have everything accessible to them, and there's no push to go one way or the other. It's in a sense, yeah, kind of very liberal, but sometimes I feel like lacking some deeper, let's say, vertical connection or whatever. And then the more I go to the east, the more it's like you get an opinion. You don't have an opinion. You get an opinion, and you do
Mm.
what is told. And anyway, so there's these things, and then languages. I think that's another thing. Every country has their own language, and it's different and not similar to any other language. So,
It is interesting. Yeah, if anybody's ever traveled through Europe, through our churches especially, it often comes up as like, is this the same faith? Are we part of the same group of people here? Because it manifests very differently based on which aspects of the faith are emphasized, right? Which parts of True Parents' words are focused on, right? And it's really interesting how you can parcel off certain aspects of a story and make it make sense to you. And it's how, I mean, a lot of people have adapted, right? It's how Christianity adapted, Christmas, these kind of things. It was the evolution of adapting to a culture. So, but the weird part is, yeah, how do you bring them all together, right? How do you work as one when everybody is so different and when there's such nuance to the strengths and weaknesses? That's a good, very very unique thing for sure for Europe, because Europe is, the countries are very different, right? Even the temperaments, even, yeah, like you measure Italians versus the British, very different people. My God, that's what you're working with. And so you've actually been traveling to a lot of different communities. And is it does it feel unmanageable, or the more that you travel, does it feel inspiring that you have a more diverse tapestry to work within?
mm, I haven't really thought about that so much. I think ultimately it is a strength. Um, because firstly, maybe I can more easily adapt to certain communities than others. And it's helpful for me that some communities feel more natural to me, and then others maybe not as much. But I can work on that. But definitely, I feel like okay, some countries are my go-tos, and I can always find common language with them. I can always rely on making an event with them, working with them together to maybe bring something special for their youth. If it was just one way or the other, I mean, if I would lose out on like if all the region was kind of difficult for me, let's say culturally, then that would be quite difficult. And I very firmly believe that there isn't really necessarily a right or wrong way. There's strengths and weaknesses, and as a community, it's actually our strength is exactly that we have these differences, which force us to try and understand each other and try and make an offering together, right? Try and create something together. I think it is a pain point for probably for the leaders of Europe. Like they need to figure this out as well, how to reconcile East and West, and even like we have countries at war right now within this Europe and Middle East region, and
That's true.
there's like three at least that I know of, three conflict areas where at least two countries are involved. So like six countries in total that are that's only what I know right now that are literally at war with each other, and that transfers over to the communities as well. I mean, Russia and Ukraine is really difficult. That's a really difficult situation to handle. I've had the experience to work with some Ukrainian youth, and I know that it's 2 years ago, they didn't even want to speak Russian. Even though all of them can understand Russian, they refuse to speak Russian because there's so much pain
Sure.
related to that, to the use of that language. Of course, so this diversity and all these cultural divides it's difficult for sure. We have a lot to get through, but God is on the other side of that. I
Yeah,
genuinely
brother.
believe that. So
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that is the only solution is together, right? And to find out how to work together. Um, One thing is really interesting. Okay. When you, and I would really implore anybody who can, who has the means or the time to travel through Europe and to visit all the different churches to do so because it's really, it's, I don't know, it's such a lesson in diversity. But what's interesting to me is that everybody that we visited, every community that we visited, all said the exact same thing is that, oh, we don't struggle with these high noon issues like these other countries, right? All the leaders would say that. And we'd say, okay. Yeah. And then we'd be like, just give us some time. And then we'd give our presentations. And then afterwards, people would come to us and tell us. And we'd oftentimes do surveys. And we'd be like, look, like humans are all the same. We have very similar desires, right? Similar needs. And we have similar dysfunctions as well. And they might manifest a little bit differently, but on the whole, for sure, high noon is high noon for a reason. And in the beginning, it was honestly, we were just an American organization, and everybody else from around the world said that's an American thing. Yes, an American problem. And then the more that we traveled, and the more that we basically just traveled with a giant mirror and let people see that no, we're all struggling together. We're all on this struggle boat together. So, have you noticed that as well? That regardless of the external diversity that exists in Europe, that internally the desires that people have are the same, and also the dysfunctions that are manifesting are in the same vein.
so far, I think in terms of the countries I've visited, and maybe it's a biased sample, like the countries that actually accepted and committed to having us, maybe they're kind of more
True.
open, but I've had a pretty good experience so far. I haven't gotten this experience yet of so many naysayers or disbelievers. I'm getting my first experiences, I think, at the moment. But yeah, whether you're Russian or French or Norwegian or Kosovan or I don't know, I think my experience for sure has been so far that there's a lack of love, there's pain, and there's
Mm.
a real lack of utilization of one of our main strengths, right? That we're a community.
Yeah.
In regards to our shadows, we continue living as if we're just, a bunch of individuals that have nothing to do with each other. We call each other
Mm.
brothers and sisters, on good times, but in a real sense, like living that as brothers and sisters, that we're so far from that still, and that's wherever we go. There's so much shame that keeps us all from experiencing God's love, I think, to the fullest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There's
And,
even very much like still untapped territory. But
really, like where?
yeah, yeah, because I think the Russian-speaking world in general is so still like unexplored territory for us, and yeah, that's something I'm making a conscious decision now, like in my future quarters, let's say, to bring more and more effort and time into that side of our region. But it's very famously often said by the East Europe regional leader, sub-regional leader, that there's 800 second generation in Russia. And I don't know what that number means. I've never seen 800. I think they're kind of spread around probably all over the place, and they're very young. But I mean, technically, if that's true, right, that's like all of the rest of Europe, or like something like that. So yeah, there's so many still untapped territories, unexplored places, and so I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that we just don't know even yet. But it's probably gonna
Yeah.
be still in that similar vein.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's honestly, it helps you develop a sense of reverence to our faith. I think that, first of all, I'm always blown away. Like, how did your parents gather this strange consortium of people, from around the world, from all these different backgrounds who would never normally be in the same room together, to not only be in the same room together, but sometimes form families together, communities. And yeah, we're definitely not perfect and there's a lot of fights or whatever, but just the fact that they can coexist at a base level is unbelievably, like, it's shocking sometimes when you go see, like, how did this person, some wild person from some country who just doesn't like anybody, that, like, a misanthropic old person, they somehow joined a movement that's all about hope and about world peace. That's unbelievable. But conversely, you can also see the reverence. I gain a reverence to the fact that the work that Hainun's doing is like, there's definitely a common thread of what's tearing apart families, right? And it's clear in the statistics and all the surveys that we did is that wherever there's internet, there's porn problems, there's sexual dysfunction, there's all sorts of familial issues, and you can't escape that because the internet's not going away, right? So it's just that there's, again, there's kind of like the sweet and the sour. There's the fact that we have already done the impossible, which is form a movement out of the biggest ragtag crew across the entire world of just the unsung heroes that are unbelievable, and these kind of, I don't know, rocks that are rough around the edges that got polished off by God to become these heavenly soldiers, right? But we're also facing the same issues worldwide, which is that, yeah, we're all struggling with sexual problems, family problems, all this stuff. So I had a question about Europe. Like, what do you think the greatest strength in the chapter is? Like the thing that you are really like, proud of, that this is something that exists in your chapter that you can be a
Yeah.
part of, that you can work with.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and the only answer I have is my team right now. It's David and Sanja, right? My right and left hands. Because I think I'm incredibly lucky that
Yeah.
somehow I got these two people that are incredibly skilled in their own ways, incredibly gifted in their own ways, with all the right attributes and knowledge and just desire that I think complements our whole chapter. And we've done a few workshops together now, and it's just we're like bread, peanut butter, and jelly, or I don't know what other things go. I don't know. Actually, some people don't like peanut butter and jelly, but but I
Those
like
people
it.
don't, they're crazy. Let's not even mention them.
Yeah, but it's been amazing so far, and now we're having these weekly meetings together, and we're scheming how we're gonna take over Europe together, and I'm super proud of them wanting to step up and support this mission, and I really hope, yeah, that people can hear from them more. I mean, both of them have been on this podcast already, but I was really hoping someday to have them like as a chapter team to kind of talk because we also have a pretty funny dynamic, I think. Sandra really fills in for our lack of sisterhood. That's like number one, probably. But then also, she's probably the most practical, the most like organizational oriented, and also just a powerhouse of a person.
Hey, just a quick interruption to tell you about the 40-day High Noon Challenge. If you're trying to find a way to start living a high noon life today with no shadows and create a radiant blessing, then this simple challenge is for you. We will send you daily lessons from our team that will keep you motivated on your journey. It's totally free, guys, and you'll get constant content directly to you. Just sign up today at highnoon.org/challenge. That is highnoon.org/challenge. All right, back to the show.
Because anything from notes to really complicated Excels to I don't know. She's just a yeah capable
Sounds
soul.
like you have a bit of a crush on her.
Might
Like,
say.
if you guys could see the video when I said that, he looked like somebody completely in love.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna confess now. So yeah, and then David, he's just so enthusiastic, so convicted about High Noon's
Yeah.
mission. He's just this. Well, it helps also that he's so tall and like his voice is so low and kind of loud and confident. He's just this rock of High Noon, I think, that yeah projects our message so clearly and so elegantly as well. I've seen him talk. I've seen him yeah interact with with people in our workshops, and even though he's usually the same age as some of the participants, but there's such a distinction, right? Because he's a person that dedicated so much time already into his own High Noon journey that yeah, he's now this very radiant person who's able to unite people, who's able to embrace anyone and everyone, let people in his life as well, into his life and his experiences. So, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
really
That's
fantastic.
that's a great that's a great thing. So that's the natural development of these chapters, is the longer that they kind of stew and ferment and turn into something really powerful. Obviously, the next step is a team. And so we have David Hewish from the UK, who's just a firecracker who was like knocking at the door constantly every day. Can we play? Can we play? Like that neighbor that you have as a kid. He's like, can we play? You know? And he just really wanted to be a part of High Noon. He's a very special guy. And if you could bottle that energy that he's made up of and sell it to the world, it would be the most popular drug in the world because people would want to feel how he feels about High Noon. It's pretty amazing. And then the other side is your wife, right? But the cool thing is that Sandra has her own. I mean, she's the one that invited us to Hungary in the first place. It was really like her willpower that brought us there. That was not a part of the plan. That was, I think, going to be our weekend off when we were doing Europe. There's no plan to do Hungary. And then she made it happen and she put together one amazing workshop. So she's got her own motivation and own desire. So you guys really are a powerhouse couple with a son, a surrogate son. Who's taller than both of you combined. And I don't think he's a rock. I think he's a tree. He's like a young budding tree who still sways in the wind a little bit, but he'll get his roots and he'll become a nice sturdy oak tree. Wonderful. So then conversely, what's the kind of biggest challenge that you notice popping up in Europe? Like some resistance or some static, something that's bothering you?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we've faced, we had to realize at some point as we were doing workshops in Prague, in Warsaw, in the UK this year, we've kind of come to grips with just the kind of damage that has been done over decades of unresolved shadows. At some points, it was really getting very difficult. I remember we were traveling by car from one of the workshops with Sanja, and we had a couple hours, and we were just talking after that workshop, and at some point we were just crying because we thought how terrible of a situation some people find themselves in. Like, they're so lonely, they're so confused, they're in so much pain. And especially one thing that and I don't know how much I can kind of unbottle this topic, but when we came to grips, and I think through Sandra mostly, because she was receiving these kind of one-on-ones with people, and through sharings, it started coming out that quite a lot of youth, like way more than you'd think, have experience with suicidal tendencies, or like they've thought of or even attempted suicide. And that was a shock for us because we're having workshops that are not huge yet. There's like 15 people and there's 5 with that kind of experience. So that's like, that's a third of the workshop, right? And that kept kind of repeating itself as a tendency. And that's actually even, when we thought about it, we realized, these are kind of the same people that have been coming to other workshops that we've organized in the past as well. And then we realized, we've heard these things before as well from people. We never, maybe it was kind of a one-by-one case, but we'd never put together the numbers of just how prevalent it is. And then we realized, oh my God, that's, well, first, that's shocking. And second, it's deeply sad. There's a lot of shadows, there's a lot of shame, and there's a lot of things that I think people who haven't worked in this kind of, in this area, like in the area of helping people, might not even really grasp just how bad it can get.
That's a big point. I think a lot of parents have no idea, to be honest, and a lot of the kids are doing the best that they can, right? It's not due to a lack of effort. It's just that things don't quite make sense, right? I would put it the way that I've been putting it, because it's the most simple analogy, is just that they're really uncomfortable in their own skin. That's the only reason you'd ever have these thoughts is like, I want to end this. What is this? It's discomfort, right? So there's physical discomfort, there's emotional discomfort. This would be spiritual, emotional kind of discomfort that they're feeling. And unless there's some genuine form of hope that there's going to be an eventual end to this discomfort, then it's kind of like you want to end it. You want some guarantee that it's going to end, right? And if you can't get it from your faith or from your family, then it's almost like a natural conclusion for somebody who's hopeless to say, well, I know one way to end this pain, right? And that's by ending my life. And so obviously it's, you know, it's a very dangerous thought to entertain. But at the same time, it's important to understand why this might be happening, right? And so, yeah, I mean, being a part of High Noon, this is the other thing I was wondering about you chapter leaders, right? Is like you are all pretty young. No chapter leader has no kids, you know? And so when this kind of stuff pops up, it really is quite shocking to see the state of, this isn't everybody's case, but everywhere we go, we do see some pretty drastic situations in people's personal lives and their family, like hearing about certain family situations. The perspective that High Noon has is probably the closest to the unmasked reality of our movement that anybody else could possibly ever have, because people share with us their darkest stuff, right? So we have access to all the skeletons in our international closet. Not all of them, but you know, even the worst stuff that we've heard it numerous times. So yeah, was this, it sounded like at least you had comfort in numbers. So you had Sandra and you guys were unpacking this together. So how do you, when you have an experience like that, when you have so many people reporting this intense negative, you know, suicidal thoughts or whatever, how do you guys see through the immediate danger and start to see hope again? Or what kind of silver lining is there in that? Or do you just get depressed and want to quit?
Yeah, well, one of the main lessons I think learned for us is that we really don't ever want to come back to a simplistic view of people that I've heard many times in our movement. And I'm guilty of sharing that as well at points when I was like harp leader and I was really naive and just
Yeah, well, just pray more, right?
yeah, like, oh, this person, well, he's just, you know, they're just obviously not doing something that they should be doing or whatever, like,
Yeah.
or yeah, they don't get it. But it's this time that I spent in these workshops, and even actually, just the most recent one was in Moldova, and it was kind of together with the Empower team. And there, I also had this experience. Again, this lesson just brought itself to me and kind of slapped me in the face. People never behave weirdly or kind of. There's always a deeper reason for why the weird or confusing behavior from a person. There's always, almost always, you can guarantee that a person who's, well, being kind of shallow or disinterested or what seems to you as he's just kind of not present or whatever. This is a human being, is not a robot or whatever, whose programming is broken. It's a human being who has feelings and has a spirit that's troubled, that's, you know, afraid, and fear is probably one of the. I really learned over the past year. Fear is such a prevalent. I don't know if I can call it fear a feeling or maybe, but
Yeah, sure.
yeah, a feeling amongst all people. So like everyone's afraid of something, and that fear gets so much grip over us that I never want to come back to just a simplistic view of people. I never want to assume anymore anything before I ask, before I get some time with a person to understand, you know, what's going on, and even that, like just changing my initial response. If I see something weird or something that's confusing to me, assuming first that maybe that person is in pain or is afraid of something or something's wrong,
Sure.
not that person wants to do something bad but to me or to whoever else, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's very important. I mean, this is why the process we see is, participant in our programs, then volunteer, like facilitator or mentor, then maybe an intern, like David Hewish presently is, then maybe part time, then maybe full time. But regardless, like being in our world, the High Noon world, is probably the best preparation to become a parent, because what you're saying right now is like, don't just judge somebody by their actions. There's an underlying emotional signal that they don't understand, and they're trying the best that they can to react to this emotion that they have. And so as a parent, it's very easy to be like, oh, my kid's being bad, and then you have a label, bad kid. You have no idea if they're being hyperactive or if they're being, I don't know, they're pushing the boundaries. There's always some reason why. And unless you have the patience to dig, then you'll never discover who this person really is, like the person behind the person behind the person. And that's something that I wish upon everybody who's a part of our world, our participants, right? Our volunteers, our facilitators, and that this is all preparation to help you see people more for who they are, their highs and their lows, but and to love them, to give them grace for where they're at, is like it makes you a bit of a superhuman in this world where everybody finds it very easy to judge each other, right? Very easy to label each other as this or that. So yeah, that's incredible. It's a lot of learning in 1 year. My God. What would you say, 1 year as a chapter leader or multiple years in university? What did you learn more?
No, I have the experience of both, and I'd say this 1 year has been just kind of revolutionary for me.
There you have it. High Noon is replacing universities across the world. We're going to put them out of business. Just kidding.
I don't want to assume, right, and I don't want to claim anything, but I really think I could go now to a psychology major and do pretty well there.
Sure. So I have a question about victories. I want some substance here. What's like the greatest, other than your team? I know, yay team, you love your wife, you love your son, David. But what is like a victory that you can just hold up like a flaming baton? That's not a thing. Those things at the Olympics, they're like a giant fireball, and you say, we did this. Europe did this. What is your biggest victory as a chapter?
Well, apart from the team, yeah, I think it's the events. We've had 4 so far. We're gonna have 5 starting today. When I thought about it, I somehow I had this thinking that we're not having enough events. We should have more events. And then I realized this is the 6th month of the year, and we're gonna do our 5th workshop, and that's not bad, all things considered. That, and like another kind of challenge that I didn't mention, there's a big fight for real estate in people's hearts and minds. Everyone wants everyone to join their program, and it's really not easy at the moment. And we had this True Mothers event happen as well recently. That was everywhere we knocked, people just said, sorry, we're like closed for 2 months now because True Mother is coming to a different country. That's not even our country, but we're closed. So I think that's a success so far, that we managed to have so many workshops, and with that came, I think, a lot of planting of good seeds, because some of those communities that we visited have become, I wouldn't say quite the believers yet, but they want more. And that's big for me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would love for you to share that lesson about trusting in God and all that you learned. Do you remember? You remember this one?
Yeah. Wait,
I think it's well, these events have really, we have this faith, which many times exists on a piece of paper, which is like, have some vague belief in spirit world, or that we can interact and make things happen, give and take, this kind of stuff. But then when we're faced with a challenge like, hey, Andranik, you said you're going to put together this many events this quarter and you don't have much time left. What are you going to do? You can either choose to believe, or you can start freaking out and start panicking and, and react out of that kind of state. And then, as I just said, start creating some energy, right? Start making some calls and watch what happens, because you're sending out a signal to the spirit world, to the cosmos, that you're interested in this and you're willing to put in some work. And then there's some interesting results that happen, right? That was just like of course this happened kind of moment, right? So I just wanted you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was the previous quarter where I had the goal of 3 events, 3 workshops, and I even said it in the beginning that I'm afraid that all of these workshops will happen at the very end of the quarter, because I was at that point kind of still in that headspace of how will I make this happen? Where are these countries going to come from? That's like 1 event per month. Yeah, it started off very slow. We had the UK that was transferred over from last year. We were supposed to have a workshop, but then we didn't. We postponed it, and so we had UK, and we pushed that one as hard as we could to finally make it happen. And again, big props to David. He really tried a lot with his own home community. But then the other 2, I was knocking, I was searching. Things weren't coming back really, and I thought, okay, this is it's like basically we were already in the end of February, and still no word on where we're gonna go. Communications were taking very long, and yeah, I was definitely quite. At some points, I was already losing like hope that whether it's possible or not. And then I just shot my shots again with 2 more countries, and they responded. One of them was Czech Republic, which I'd actually responded very fast. Like they were very enthusiastic about having the workshop, and then Poland was, they took a bit of time. There's a kind of weird situation in Poland where there's like this Ukrainian team and then the Polish community, and you have to kind of arrange with both to have a workshop. And the reason I was pessimistic as well, that I tried with Poland already before, and it kind of was very slow. Stuff wasn't working out. I mentioned like in the beginning, and but then these workshops I think in like 1 month, everyone said yes. And then I was like, oh wait, what? Now I actually need to go and like prepare and get my team to come as well.
Yeah.
So and then there was this the summit, the 24-hour summit, that was right on the Polish workshop day. Like the Polish community said that, okay, we can do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then David, I think, called me out. I was like, wait, aren't we having the summit at that time? And at that point, I was like, well, yeah, and we're having the summit at that time as well. Yes, we're gonna make it happen. I just
Can do.
From that, like we talk sometimes, I'm still kind of trying to install this lesson in myself that
Sure.
that sometimes really it's on the foundation of faith that we have that things can happen, that like things that we don't know, people that we don't know about, can pop up in the right time in the right place. But nothing will happen if we don't show up with our openness, with our optimism, or creative or open approach to places that maybe we haven't visited before. Like, yeah,
Yeah, well, I also remember very clearly that the next day after one of these calls, because we had two such calls where I was just kind of imploring you to send out the signal, and then one of the times you got a call from somebody inviting you to your own local community like the next day or something. It was just like very immediate. Do you remember that? We had a call on like a Thursday, and that's my time. And then the next day, after you got a call, and like, oh yeah, I just got invited to speak in my own community here, right? And I mean,
yeah,
I
that
think you were in Albania at that time. Yes, it did.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't remember so clearly anymore. I remember that it could have been actually the previous quarter, like the last
Yeah, it could have been.
the autumn. But
The
that yeah,
point
something like that happened
remains,
where
Andranik. Come on.
like the next day I spoke with the harpies, the harp community in Lithuania. Yeah,
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, yeah, there's a workshop this weekend. Can you come? And you're like, oh, yeah, 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 I can come. So it's just the idea, everybody, that, a lot of times we're just really stuck in a static state and nothing happens there. There's no magic, there's no excitement, there's nothing. And that's part of why we're so uncomfortable, is because we're stationary. And humans were never meant to be stationary, not emotionally or mentally, not even physically. You get sick when you are stationary spiritually, mentally, physically, anything. So in order to create momentum, sometimes you have to really go outside of your comfort zone, make some calls, make stuff happen. And maybe there's not the direct result that you want, but there's something that you get back. So that was just a lesson that I got to see firsthand, like through you, vicariously through you in your situation, which is cool. Wrapping up, I just wanted to ask you, this has been 1 year, right? But I want to know, what does year two look like, and what do you need? Like, I'm sure you have some inkling of what the next year is going to unfold into, in terms of your vision for your chapter, and then also as a call to arms, like who can help you? If somebody's listening, how can they help you create a more robust chapter and to take over more of this land known as Europe?
right. Yeah, so generally speaking, I have like a vision that's very long term, that's spanning over multiple years. I don't want any corner of Europe left without access to God's love. And for this upcoming year, for me, that means I need to find one corner. I don't know how many corners there are, but basically, we have this intention. We've spoken with my team as well. We have the intention to try and set up camp somewhere. And we're not sure where that is. We're not sure yet which community, which country would like that deeper integration and deeper long-term cooperation in terms of youth education and us just being more present, let's say, and giving more of our time and energy to them based on their foundation of desiring that. But that's our intention, to find that place, that country. Yeah, and basically, like, I think to anyone who's listening here from Europe, and I've said this other times already, and I've tried to communicate it on different channels, but I want to say it now as clearly as I possibly can. We will come to your country. We will come to your city, to whatever God-forsaken village or which corner you are in. We will come based on your desire and faith. We will bring high noon and the light that casts out shadows anywhere that we can, because ultimately we want to help people. We want to bring God's children back to God. Where you can help is, help us out in arriving. Help us out in creating movement and energy in your country. that's how we've been working so far. We just know some people in a lot of places, and we ask them, hey, how do you think we could make a workshop happen in your country? They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally want that. Let me talk to my national leader or community leader. They talk, okay, we set up a meeting, we have a meeting, we discuss the dates, the team who's going to be doing what, let's say in practical preparations, and then we move on that. We bring everything we can from our side. All we need help is with just, yeah, the place, the people,
And yeah,
yeah, and that's
the
some of the biggest
desire.
help. But yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like, so if you're listening and you're in Europe, any corner apparently in Europe, start by talking to your leader and asking to make this happen. And there needs to be a willingness on your part to help make it happen, right? But we, like you said, we do all the heavy lifting in terms of having all the conversations, setting up the workshop. We just need some help in terms of logistics and things like that. But if you start the conversation now, like he said, he's been doing basically a workshop a month. He can do that. So not everybody has to be ready right now, but even this year, start pushing your leaders. If you understand the importance of this, if you heard anything that he said, that there are people who are in a really dark place, and what do they need? They need community, they need truth, they need to help practice the five high noon virtues in an intentional community. That's the only way through this, is together in community. But too many people are lost and floating by themselves. If you want to reverse that trend, you need to expose them to a counterculture. That's what we bring. We don't just bring information. We bring a culture, and we allow people to inherit from our culture, practice that culture in their own lives, plug into that culture through our online courses. But the kind of atomic bomb in a heavenly way, to really get things going, is a workshop in your community. So please reach out to, what is your email? What is your email? Just say it loud and proud, man. Your high noon email. What is it?
yeah. My high noon email is andranik@highnoon.org.
Also, if you're not if you're not from Albania, it's Andranik, and that's ANDRANIK at highnoon.org. And reach out to him. Start getting things going. Just the kind of inverse of what I was mentioning about him is he's been reaching out to communities, and sparks start happening, and then events start happening. Likewise, if you have a desire, reach out and start creating sparks in your community, and we can help to revolutionize your community for sure. There's no community that's irredeemable, where anybody's, any group of people are not capable of healing or getting better. Wherever there's a desire, there's always God's love, right? So please talk to your local Andranik.
Yeah, I just want to say that if anyone here who's listening from Italy or Netherlands or Belgium or Portugal or Slovenia or Croatia, these are some ongoing conversations that we have right now. And if you're from there and you want to, pull the tide in in a certain direction or help out there, yeah, we're really hoping to come there and anywhere else really. And maybe one more convincing factor here, or like just something I want to share, and it's based on just our own statistics and knowledge, right? It's like 80 to 90% of guys are struggling and have deep shadows in the areas of their sexual integrity. Even women, around 50%. That's like, if you look around in your community, that could be, for sisters, like half of your best buddies or best friends, right? And brothers, we know how it is, actually. Most brothers, we know how it is. And what we do, the work we do, comes from a very deep desire to love and help. We don't come to lecture and to tell anyone how they're good or bad or whatever, or to just come and say, like, I think many people have this concept that we're just like coming and saying porn, 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 sex, porn, many times because we're edgy. No, that's not what we do. We're here to heal and to help us be our best selves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. So please reach out to him. You know his digits. Do the 1s and 2s on your keyboard. Reach out to him. Make stuff happen. We're also developing more of a strategy to continue care when we leave a place. Because before it was kind of like we'd go to a country, people would have a great experience, and then we would leave. But now there's continual presence of High Noon everywhere we go, because we have a very organized way of involving you in groups and our community aspect, which is online. You can start stuff in your community if you want, live if you want, and that's what Andranik's talking about. He can help you to build that out. There's a lot of potential. The only limitation is our imagination. So please reach out. Thank you so much, Andranik, for all that you do and have done and will do. And thanks for coming on and sharing with us.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.